welcome to the Janesville League of Women Voters Candidates Forum for Wisconsin State Assembly District 44. I'm Laura Peterson. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Janesville, which is a nonpartisan organization that works to register voters, host candidate forums just like this one, study local, state, and national issues, and bring informative programs to Janesville and Northern Rock County. Visit our website at www.lwvjvl.org or follow us on Facebook and Twitter to get involved and stay informed. I'd like to thank JATV and Forward Janesville for their help in presenting this program tonight. I'd also like to thank the candidates for joining us, and we appreciate you being here. Linda Reinhardt is also joining us tonight. She is going to be our timekeeper. So I wanted to let you know, for the first time in 2020, the Janesville League is posting a voter's guide to local elections on vote411.org. The League of Women Voters Education Fund, which is the national organization, created this informational platform. The website shows who and what issues are on your ballot, and you will be able to read candidates' responses to questions posed by the League in their own words. You will also be able to find links to video recordings of candidate debates and forums, just like this one, through the vote411.org. As always, the League does not support or oppose any candidates or parties. We strive to provide accurate, unbiased voting information consistent with our mission, empowering voters, defending democracy. So let's go over the forum guidelines for tonight. So we don't have members of the public here tonight for our virtual forum. And so normally we get questions from the public. We did ask for questions from the public, but we only received questions from one group. So the questions were developed by the League with input from Forward Janesville. So candidates have not received these questions in advance, and they will take turns being the first to answer questions. Candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. The responses will be timed, as I mentioned, by Linda, to give each candidate an equal opportunity to be heard and cover as many topics as possible. So now we're going to meet the two candidates that we are fortunate to have with us tonight. So DuWayne Severson and Sue Conley are both running for Wisconsin Assembly District 44. We flipped a coin just before the forum started. Sue Conley is going to be giving our first introduction, and then DuWayne will be closing with the first introduction. So now we will start with the first question, which is, please introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for the state assembly, what you hope to accomplish, and what your qualifications are. Sue, you'll be answering our first question.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank the League, Forward Janesville, and JATV for putting this together. I really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of the voters in this way. The League, Forward Janesville, and JATV do this all the time, so I'm very grateful to have them in our community providing this service. My name is Sue Conley. I moved to Janesville in 1971, and I've never left. It became my home, and I love it dearly. I married a man who was born and raised here, and we've raised 3 children here, Scott, Bernie, and Lizzie. I started my career in banking right out of high school, actually, while I commuted to school in Whitewater. I stopped working for a while to raise our 3 children, and then got back into the workforce at the YWCA. I worked my way up to the executive director position there, and then I left there for the Community Foundation of Southern Wisconsin. I led that organization for 12 years, retired 6 years ago, and since then I've been doing volunteer consulting work with nonprofit boards, helping them to do strategic planning and strengthen their governance. I've also held 3 interim executive director positions, one with HelpNet, one with Can Do, and I'm currently working for UW Rock County Foundation, helping them to merge with UW Whitewater Foundation. In 2017, I ran for city council, and I'm in my 4th term, serving as president. My priorities for running are, I really want to help build consensus around the issues that we face. I think there are a lot of really good ideas out there. We need to gather them from all over the state and try to find common ground so that we can all work together to find creative solutions to the problems that we face. Some of my priorities are fair maps, homelessness prevention, state shared revenue, and COVID relief and access to health care. And my time is up.
Thank you, Sue. Linda, just a little note, your sign is a little off from the camera, so it was a little hard to see. I want to make sure and see what's going on. So, DuWayne, go ahead and please present your answer to that question.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you again to the League of Women Voters and to Forward Janesville for having this opportunity to speak tonight and having this debate. You know, this is a great opportunity for the Janesville and the 44th District to send somebody to the Assembly to get things done. I've got a record of getting things done in our community and not just having some endless study sessions. I'll take my experience of 34 years in healthcare, my 9 years on the Janesville School Board, 5 years on the Janesville Police and Fire Commission, and 3 years with the Janesville City Council to get things done. You know, one of the opportunities that I've had in knocking on over 5,000 doors safely in our community, I've been able to listen to folks, and one of the biggest concerns I hear out there is what's going on in our community, our state, in our nation. People are concerned about the safety of their families, their homes, and their businesses. I will stand and I will protect the full funding of our police departments so they can provide the security and safety we need in our communities. COVID-19's impacted our schools, our jobs, and our public health department. I'll work to get the jobs back into Janesville that we need, the resources for our students, for our parents who are teaching their students at home, and our teachers. And most importantly, funding for our public health departments to make sure that they provide adequate, timely information for those most vulnerable and for our businesses. Thanks again for this opportunity tonight, and I look forward to our debate.
Great, thank you. So for our next question, DuWayne, you will actually be answering this one first.
Okay.
So if you are elected to the state legislature, would you support legislation to create a nonpartisan procedure to prepare legislative and congressional district plans and maps?
Well, first and foremost, let me say this. I am all in favor of fair maps as they apply and are completed by our state constitution. You know, the Constitution calls for the legislature to draw the maps. It calls for the governor to either accept or reject them and work through the process. If there's issues, the discussion can go to the courts if necessary. You know, I think the bigger question is, in what situations do we follow the Constitution, and in what situations do we not follow the Constitution? You know, we have a Constitution to follow along with our state statutes. Let's work within the system that we have in place. If people want to change things legislatively, go through the appropriate changes within the Constitution, let's use that. But my concern is following the Constitution in one situation and not another. I think we need to follow the Constitution, follow the state statutes, and apply it accordingly.
All right, thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
Yeah, I absolutely believe that we need to have a nonpartisan commission help in drawing our maps. The Constitution doesn't, to my knowledge, signify that the legislators actually draw the maps. They approve the maps. It seems to me that the last time the maps were drawn, there were attorneys involved. I'd rather see state residents involved. I think the Iowa model that's been put forward makes a lot of sense. And the gerrymandering that we have now really hurts both parties. I mean, our districts are not fairly drawn, and that means that the representatives choose their voters. I want the voters to choose their representatives. And I certainly would support nonpartisan map drawing under the Constitution. And I think we can do that with the Constitution as it is now.
Thank you, Sue. So, Sue, this will be your question first, then next. So, multiple studies show Wisconsin has wide racial disparities in household income, educational outcomes, home ownership, health insurance, unemployment, incarceration, and infant mortality. What strategies would you take to narrow these gaps and achieve a more racially equitable society?
This is a huge problem in our communities all across the state, and I think it's one that we haven't given enough attention to. Even in Janesville, for example, the Gazette not too long ago ran an article about how more juveniles are are sent through the system that are of color versus white. And I just don't believe that students of color are in trouble more than white students are. I think we need to examine our own self-biases. I think we need to provide training both for our police officers, but our educators as well. I think we just don't realize that sometimes our own biases get in the way of fairness. So I would like to see us really drill down on that and really understand why these things are happening. Homeownership is a great example. Why is it that fewer people of color own homes? And maybe it's different from community to community, but it's something that I don't think we've given enough time and attention to really understand why that's happening. I'd like to see us work harder to understand why it's happening so that we can find solutions to it.
All right. Thank you, Sue. DuWayne?
Thank you. I support Speaker Voss's task force that was set up approximately a month ago, a bipartisan task force, which also invites citizen participation throughout the state. I think having that discussion, both parties within the assembly as well as individuals, to address the issues of racial disparity, policing issues if there's concern. I think that's a good forum to do that. I think we need to look at Janesville in our police area as some models if there are issues throughout the state. Janesville has done a lot of good things to reach out to our various communities. So again, I support what the speaker has set up, and I think we can address these issues.
Okay, thank you. So DuWayne, this will be your question then first next. Okay. Communities of color and other groups are calling for reform in police practice. What policing reforms or reallocations of funds do you support to make all of our state citizens and communities feel safe?
Well, first and foremost, I think I want to make sure that our police departments are fully funded as they are. I don't think there needs to be any reallocation of police funds. I think if we look at the city of Janesville as a comparison to our other sister communities within the state of Wisconsin, we have a very low number of police officers on a per 1,000 basis than others. So I'm concerned about the safety issues that might be incurred by reducing our police forces. I would be open to adding additional behavioral health services, mental health services, other community services out there to assist our police officers when they answer a call. But I think our police departments need the full funding that they have to provide the safety that we need in our communities.
Thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
I agree that our police department really is ahead of this curve. I think Chief Morris done a great job. He set up the African American Liaison Advisory Committee and the Latino Liaison Advisory Committee, really working with the police department to help them understand the different cultures and to be a go-between in some situations to help people of color actually build trust within our police department. I think that's critical. I also think that there are uses of force policies that the state could review and perhaps come up with some guidelines or perhaps legislation that would help keep all of our citizens safe and police officers safe. I think this is a complicated issue. I think every community might look at it a little bit differently, and we need to take that into consideration. And any legislation that's passed that mandates anything, I think the state needs to help fund, because police departments all over the state, like Janesville, are running very lean, and we certainly don't want to put more burden on them. But perhaps there are other ways that municipalities could use their police department dollars. Social workers, for example, could be sent out instead of police officers in many situations. And I think that's something that's worth exploring to understand better how we might use different skill sets in different situations to help our citizens feel safe and secure in their own communities.
All right, thank you, Sue. All right, so Sue, this will be your question next. So what role should the government play to protect public health in a pandemic? Which branch and what level of government should take the lead?
I believe that, I wish the national government actually would step up, but in lieu of that, I do believe that the state government should come together. I think it's disappointing to me that our legislature hasn't come together to try to work with our governor to create some safety guidelines for our entire state. I realize that some communities think that they might not need the same things that other communities need, and that would work great if we all just stayed put in our own communities, but we don't. We travel around all the time. I've worked with a task force through the county on reopening Rock County, and I headed up a government sector of that task force. And I heard from many of our smaller communities that really wished that the governor had done a mask mandate sooner, because people traveled to those communities all the time and they really felt like they didn't have the resources and couldn't really oversee a mandate in their own small communities, but they really appreciated it when the governor did that. So I think at least at the state level, we should come together and try to come up with guidelines and resources for the entire state. Perhaps it's region by region, but just letting each community try to figure it out on their own, I don't think is sufficient. And I think, we vote in representatives to represent us and try to find solutions. And I'm disappointed that our state hasn't been better at doing that in this pandemic.
Thank you, Sue. DuWayne?
Well, thank you. In the last 24 hours, we've got some mixed messages from the Evers administration. Yesterday they came out and they said that, they updated the how many individuals could be in bars and restaurants, I believe, down to 25%. But they also indicated that, and they showed us through, I'm not sure how they showed us, that, the virus somehow has determined that not to attend religious ceremonies like weddings and funerals, but the virus has the ability to identify non-religious funerals and weddings. The order doesn't apply to religious facilities. We also find out that the order doesn't apply to K-12 schools, and it doesn't apply to colleges and universities. Earlier this afternoon, the Evers administration came out and said that because of increased hospitalizations, they were going to open the field hospital in Milwaukee. However, they indicated there that one of the main causes for the increase in admissions was the K-12 schools opening up and colleges and universities opening up. So one day we find out that the order doesn't apply to them, but on the next day we find out that, they're the main ones that are causing the issues. It's not the bars and the restaurants that are causing the issues. I mean, look at this scenario. We've got a situation where if I'm in the University of Wisconsin, I'm sitting in a study, if I'm having a study session, 75 people, and the study session gets over, I can go down to my local restaurant, have a drink and a sandwich, but I can't get in that restaurant or that bar because it's a bar and a restaurant. Same number of people, same square footage, but somehow we can have the people meet at the college, but they can't meet in the bar or restaurant. I don't know if they want us to follow medical science or the political science. I think we need to get some clarification on that.
Okay. Thank you, DuWayne. All right, DuWayne, you'll answer this one first then.
Okay.
So how can the state encourage economic recovery in the midst of COVID-19 through legislative action?
Well, one of the main things we have to do is not tax our families and our businesses. I mean, right now, we've seen in the last several weeks the dire warnings from restaurants and hotels may have to close. Some staggering numbers, anywhere from 30 to 50% by the end of the year if they don't get some additional assistance from the federal government. The last thing we need to do is add any more taxes. I think the other thing that needs to occur is just utilizing those facilities, loosening up the access, as I mentioned before, the number of people that can access restaurants and bars. Lift those limitations of 25%, 50%. and let those decisions be made on a local basis rather than a statewide basis. I think by the governor's own order yesterday, we find out that it applies to certain situations over others, certain locations over others. Let each community decide what's best for them. What's good here in Janesville may not be what's right in Ladysmith, and what's right in Milwaukee may not be what's right in Green Bay. So let each community figure out what they need to do to help their particular community.
Okay, thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
Yeah, economic recovery is critical. There are so many people who are out of work right now or underemployed right now. We really need to help all those folks. One of the things that I think can really help people recover is to keep them in their homes. So if we have people who have been unemployed and unable to pay rent, then we need to help to make sure they can stay in their homes. I think the state government can provide rental assistance to help that. The landlords need the funding too, right? So it's not an either or, it's a both and. I think governments of the state, the city, the county have all offered grants and loans to businesses to try to help them stay afloat. I think things like that need to continue. And we really just have to all come together and work hard to help each other out. I think it's difficult when we're all isolated. You know, a lot of people aren't going out now, and that makes it hard to feel like we're part of a community. But really are part of a community, and I think we all need to work harder to take care of each other.
All right, thank you, Sue. All right, so Sue, this will be your question next. So Wisconsin is one of several states that have chosen not to expand Medicaid with federal funds offered under the Affordable Care Act. If elected to the legislature, would you be in favor of continuing the policy against accepting federal funds for Medicaid expansion, or would you support a change in policy?
I absolutely support a change in policy and believe that we need to expand Medicaid, especially during the pandemic. I want to quote an article that I read about this from the Journal of American Medical Association. They say that the economic health devastation caused by the pandemic will be substantially mitigated for low-income populations in states that have expanded Medicaid. We also know that people who are part of the expansion of Medicaid get better benefits than those who don't, and that our hospitals also can benefit by having the Medicaid expansion. There's no cap on how much the federal government will cover. State does have to pay its fair share, but overall, if we expand the Medicaid for our state, it allows households of up to 138% of poverty receive health care. Right now, it's only 100%. And that could mean the addition of 20,000 or more people in our state would be covered. I think as the budget talks begin for the next biennium, that this will come into play. And I really hope that we're able to bring this money into our state. Right now, Wisconsin taxpayers send money to the federal government, and we let them send federal dollars to other states to pay for health care. I think we deserve some of that money to come back to Wisconsin.
Thank you, Sue. DuWayne?
Well, first, Laura, and to Linda, just a point of clarity. My understanding was for the debate tonight, we were not to reference and bring any materials to read. The only thing we were allowed to do is to have a blank sheet of paper and writing on notes. But in my discussions with Linda earlier today, that was confirmed with me. Linda, is that my understanding?
Oh, Linda's muted.
We did not have, I guess I wasn't asked if you could bring any quotations to share. You asked if you could bring some blank paper, and I said yes.
Okay, from what we had talked about before, I didn't know that we could bring notes to reference it, so I just wanted to make sure about that. So thank you so much. As far as Medicaid expansion, the Legislative Audit Bureau in 2017 did a study, and they concluded that one of the main issues for expanding Medicaid, not only taking the dollars, but you'd also be expanding the individuals on the rolls, is you would be adding more people to the existing providers that are already out there. Look, Medicaid's the lowest payer that we have, out there. Medicaid pays less than Medicare and commercial insurance. Right now, only about 40% of the psychiatrists in the state of Wisconsin accept Medicaid. You compare that to private insurance, which is about 61%. In family practice, we have about 70% of the family practice providers in the state of Wisconsin take Medicaid. Compare that to private insurance, it's about 91%. By just adding dollars and individuals, you're going to cause more issues with families and their children to access those same providers. Let's look at first how we pay the providers and what services we're paying under Medicaid first before we go in and expand Medicaid.
Okay. Thank you, DuWayne. All right, DuWayne, you'll get this question first.
Thank you.
So in 2020, U.S. News and World Report, sorry, let me start that again. I got a little tongue-tied there. In 2020, U.S. News and World Report's report on the best states, Wisconsin ranked 11th overall, but 30th in infrastructure. Minnesota, for reference, ranked 3rd overall and 6th on infrastructure. If elected to the legislature, what would you do to improve the quality of infrastructure in Wisconsin? And how do you balance that against the other competing budgetary needs?
Well, you know, first and foremost, I think one of the things we've learned through this whole COVID-19 issue over the last 6 to 8 months is how do we get things done differently than we've done before? What innovations, what new ideas can we implement, not only for infrastructure, but for anything in the budget? So I think we have to look at everything. Everything has to be on the table concerning our budget in the next biennium. I think one of the things that has been discussed is as far as the transportation utility fund to take care of our roads. I'm open to that idea. You know, we know that with the expansion of electric cars, the amount of total dollars that we can get from the electric cars as far as the fuel tax is decreased. And also fuel efficiency continues to decrease the amount of dollars that we can utilize for repairing and fixing our roads. So I'm open to those discussions if I'm elected.
All right. Thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
Yeah, I agree that a transportation utility is certainly something I know that the city of Janesville is looking at, and I think the state could do so as well. I am not opposed to a gas tax and increasing that gas tax and indexing that gas tax because that allows the state of Wisconsin to collect dollars from visitors. And we have lots of visitors every year using our roads. I see no reason why we shouldn't try to get them to help us pay for roads. But I also think that those dollars need to be earmarked for transportation projects only. We don't want to see that money being used for anything else. There probably are lots of other ways to fund infrastructure. And I think we just need to be open to new ways of doing things, explore what other states are doing. I know that there have been several task forces over the last decade that have looked at that. Let's pull out those reports, see what else they recommended, because I know they had lots of really good recommendations in those reports that have kind of just been put on the shelf. So let's review those, see what other ideas are out there, and try to find some common ground so that we can continue to expand on our infrastructure. We have roads falling apart, bridges falling down, nearly falling down all over the state. I think we need to make that a priority.
All right, thank you. So Sue, this will be your question next. Is the current funding formula for public education in Wisconsin adequate to ensure that every child in Wisconsin has an equal opportunity to receive good education regardless of where they live? If not, what are the options the Wisconsin legislature can do to make it possible to make school funding more equitable?
School funding, pieces of the formula of the funding have been frozen since, I think, 1994. A long time. So if you were a high-functioning, high-income district in 1994, you're still considered that today, whether or not that's the case. As with municipal funding formulas, I think the state needs to take apart every piece of that formula, think about it, put it back together again in a way that is equitable. Because right now, it's not. Special education funding is one example of the school funding formula. It doesn't quite work. It makes mandates, but it doesn't fund them. So I think it's time that we stop using frozen formulas from decades ago and rethink how we fund our schools and try to make it as equitable as possible based on lots of different things, right? The income levels of the districts, how many students are in the districts, what the racial disparities might be in those districts, population and poverty. So there are a lot of things to consider as we try to be equitable in school funding. And it's time to take it all apart and put it back together again, I think.
Thank you, Sue. DuWayne.
Yeah, the funding for our schools, they're balanced out based upon what each community is, their financially, how well off they are. So they're there. I think one of the bigger questions has to be, how are we spending those dollars? Labor and insurance and benefits, those types of things keep going up. I know in my time on the Janesville School Board, the amount of dollars that are spent for labor and benefits has increased steadily. So we need to relook at that. I think, let's face it, we have distant learning right now. What's going to happen with COVID-19, post-COVID-19? Are we going to have more parents opting out of sending their kids to school? How much more brick and mortar do we actually need for our communities? Are we going to have more virtual? Are we able to teach more children for one teacher than we have in the past? I think those are a lot of the questions that we have to look at. So just saying that we continue on with what we've done in the past, I think, again, COVID-19 has given us the opportunity to look at things differently. How do we deliver education to our children differently than what we have in the past? And how do we make sure that they get the quality that they need? So I think we need to pause. What are we doing? Is it the best that we can do? And then let's look at how we might fund that.
Thank you. DuWayne, this will be your question next. So this one was submitted by members of the public. So over 64,000 premature deaths occur in the United States every year due to air pollution. 1,900 specifically in Wisconsin, and this only represents one way that climate change harms health. What climate policies do you support, and what would you like to see, and when would you like to see these goals achieved? And how will you ensure that low-income communities and communities of color benefit from climate solutions? There's a lot in that one.
And I have 2 minutes for that, right? Well, first and foremost, as a father of 7 and a grandfather of 7, I absolutely want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, they're able to enjoy the environment just as I have. And, what I need to make sure, and I think we all need to make sure, is what's the balance between providing the best environment possible, but also not, cutting back on the opportunities that our children and our grandchildren might want to have in providing their goals and their desires. I'll work with both sides of the aisle to look at opportunities to provide safe communities and minimize pollution. That's something, as a legislature, I'll work with anybody when I get to the legislator. Sorry, when I get to the assembly. But I think we have to look at all the competing interests involved here. We need to make sure that the measures we take, aren't economically harmful to our communities.
Thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
Now, I think we definitely have to be trying to get to a clean energy state level all across our state. We need to eliminate coal, which is a big air polluter, and eliminate lead pipes. We need clean drinking water, and I was happy that the governor declared this the year of clean drinking water. I think the DNR also can play a big role in this. They do a lot of work in wetlands and creating policy that help agriculture not pollute. We also have PFAS, which are chemicals that never go away. And a big source of those is through firefighting foam. So we need to take a close look at that and try to mitigate that as much as possible. There's so many areas that impact our environment and our health And I think clean energy, clean drinking water, looking at agriculture to make sure they are within the best practices to keep our drinking water and land clean are all good ideas. There's so much more to do. I guess it's a conversation that needs to continue and continue and continue. I don't think we'll ever be done with that conversation.
Thank you, Sue. All right. So, Sue, this will be your next question. So, the dairy, agriculture, and food industries in Wisconsin depend heavily on immigrant labor to be productive. Many of the immigrants require a vehicle to get to work, get kids to school, and maybe driving without a license. This results in increases in uninsurance rate, and it undermines effective law enforcement. Would you support legislation to create an avenue for driver's license with restrictions, or however you'd like to discuss it, for those immigrants?
I do think it's important that we train immigrants who are here legally to drive and to give them a legal driver's license. In my time at the YWCA 20 years ago, this was an issue that we worked on to try to get immigrants the ability to have driver's license. Number one, it makes them safer on the roads. A lot of people don't have driver's license, but they still drive, whether they're immigrants or not. I think it's important that anyone that gets behind the wheel has the proper training, and we know they've had the proper training and that we can issue a driver's license. Maybe it's a slightly different looking driver's license, so we know that they're immigrants or that they aren't able to vote if that's the case. But I do think it's important to give them the proper training and to license them to drive in our state.
I'm sorry, you want me to go?
I'm sorry, I accidentally muted. DuWayne, go ahead.
Okay, thanks so much. I think what the bigger question is how can we assist in, getting people legalized and become citizens to get a driver's license. I'm concerned that we, just provide driver's license to illegal aliens, to illegal individuals. It's a good idea, it sounds like a good idea, but I'm concerned about, how far that will go. So I think let's look at possibly, could we get them to become legal citizens, go through the process like everybody else has, and then, if they need to get a driver's license for their work, that's fine. I think we need to be careful just to provide a driver's license to an illegal alien. And so I'm concerned about that.
Okay. So, DuWayne, this will be your question next. Hopefully I'm unmuted still. All right. So the cost of incarcerating an inmate in a Wisconsin medium security prison for 1 year is nearly $30,000, according to a recent estimate from the Wisconsin Department of Corrections. Wisconsin has more people in jail per capita than Michigan, Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota, and we spend significantly more per state resident on prisons than Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota. What suggestions do you have for bringing our Department of Corrections costs more in line with our neighboring states?
Yeah, I think this is one where we can see and use best practices from other states. I think utilizing local services within our communities, getting individuals the training they need, working with the Fatherhood Project, things like that. Giving them the job skills they need, giving tax incentives to businesses to hire individuals who are incarcerated. I think we need to work at getting people back into our community. The more we can provide an economic opportunity for people to provide for their families, we're all better off. So I think that's definitely an area that we need to work on in the legislature in the next biennium.
Thank you, DuWayne. Sue?
Now, I think we need to take a hard look at how many people are sent to prison every year and what we can do to reduce that number. What are the sentencing requirements? And are there some that maybe aren't reasonable today, if they were ever? So helping people get out of prison and get back into the community is great, but I don't see that changing the amount of money that we spend on prisons. So I think we have to stop the pipeline into prison. And that probably goes back to racial disparity as well. And we need to take a look at what that racial disparity is, why it is what it is, and try to come up with solutions to prevent so many people going to prison in the first place.
All right. Thank you, Sue. So I've actually reached the end of my prepared questions. You both were very succinct in answering your things. So I guess for one last question, I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak about an issue that you think we should have asked about tonight. So who is the next? I
think it was Sue. It would be Sue.
So Sue, is there something that you think that we should have asked tonight that we did not?
Well, I am concerned about homelessness prevention. I don't think we've given it nearly enough attention. I'm worried that when the eviction moratorium ends at the end of this year, that there's going to be quite a long list of folks who owe back rent because they haven't been able to be employed and don't have the resources to pay the back rent. And then they're on the street. It'll be in the wintertime, and we don't, especially during COVID, the shelters have reduced capacity, trying to keep everyone safe. What happens to those folks? I'd like to see the legislature take a really hard, close look at homelessness prevention and come up with a Housing First initiative, because we know if we can keep people in their homes, they do better everywhere else in their life. They are stable, they have a bed to come home to every night, table to sit down and have a meal with their family. A lot of other issues that they face are manageable. So homelessness is something that I really would like our state to take a hard look at and try to come up with some solutions to prevent homelessness in the first place, rather than provide shelter for those who become homeless. That's one of the things that I think we didn't talk about today that I'd like to see us work harder at.
Okay, so thank you, Sue. DuWayne, if you would like to speak to the issue of homelessness and then bring up your own separate topic, that would be acceptable. Or if you would just like to bring up another topic, choice is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to go back to what I mentioned before at the opening, safety and security. That's the main theme that I've heard on the campaign trail. I mean, people are concerned about what's happening specifically in our own state. We've seen what's happened in Madison. We've seen what's happened in Kenosha. People are concerned about what's going on. Why do we have the unrest that we do? I think we need to act decisively and swiftly when these issues occur. I'm concerned from what I've heard from people about the delay of the governor in taking appropriate actions in Madison in the June timeframe, and also over in Kenosha over the last couple of months. So I think those are the main issues. People are concerned. They want to make sure that they're safe, their homes are safe, their families are safe. That's a baseline issue we have to address. If people are safe and they feel that they can go about their day-to-day activities, then we can build upon other issues that have to be addressed. But if people aren't safe, if they're not secure, then everything else is off to the side. They need to make sure that they can function, that they can go out, they can go to a restaurant that's legally opened, that they can do all their other business without being possibly harmed. So I think we need to make sure that we provide the safety and security in our state, and to make sure that people feel comfortable moving around.
All right, thank you, DuWayne. So with that, we will do our closing statements. So DuWayne, as we agreed at the beginning, you're going to give your closing statement first, and then you have 2 minutes, and then Sue will also have 2 minutes. So if you are ready, DuWayne, you may go ahead and make your closing statement.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and to Forward Janesville for sponsoring this event. This is a great opportunity for our district to really choose the leadership, not only for our district, but for the state for years to come. I've got a track record of getting things done in our community. Janesville needs a leader, somebody who will go out and meet with the citizens rather than having the citizens come to them. We need somebody who wants to be a servant rather than just adding the title of assembly person to their social resume. As I've mentioned before, I will stand with our police departments to make sure that they're fully funded in order to provide the safety and the security that we need in our communities. You know, Janesville, we've been able to work through a number of issues over the years, and we've been able to succeed. And we'll get through this. What's been happening in 2020. I look forward to the opportunity to serve the people of the 44th Assembly District. I thank you again for this time tonight, and I ask for your vote on November 3rd.
Thank you, DuWayne. Sue, your closing statement.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. I appreciate the League of Women Voters, JATV, and Forward Janesville very much for coming together to provide this opportunity. I have been serving the community of Janesville my entire adult life, mostly through nonprofit organizations. The list of my involvement in the community is long, and when Representative Kolstey decided not to run, I was ready to run. My commitment to our community runs deep and strong. I've proven to be a good leader in our community. I am a consensus builder and a problem solver. I will work with everyone at the State House to try to come to common ground to find solutions to the problems that we all face. But I'll always keep the residents, the citizens of Janesville at the forefront. Any vote that I take will always be taken in the best interest of Janesville. I agree that we need to come together with the residents. It's been a difficult time, and we haven't been able to be together in groups like we would like to. But someday we will, and we'll all be happier then, I'm sure. But I think that my leadership is proven, my commitment to the community is proven, and I really hope that you'll vote for me November 3rd or before if you're already voting. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank both of you for participating. And also, I'd like to make a special thank you to both of you for submitting responses to the vote411.org website. I think it's really a testament to our community that we have two candidates who are so willing to share their views so that people can read what you believe and what you are running for in your own words. And that obviously is very important to us as League of Women Voters, as we are trying to educate voters so that they can make informed decisions. So we have been talking to the two candidates for the Wisconsin State Assembly District 44. DuWayne Severson and Sue Conley are both running. I'd like to thank Forward Janesville and JATV for their assistance. JATV does an amazing job with their technical assistance, and I think we all appreciated. I thought this went very smoothly. This is a new format that we've never tried before, and I'm happy to say that it worked well, and I think it was safe for all of us as well. So thank you for everyone for making this work. Don't forget the fall election is held on Tuesday, November 3rd. Make sure to get informed and vote. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it.